Hello everyone, you've heard about this video for a few days now. This is the longest video of the entire year, so I recommend sitting down, getting comfortable, taking frequent breaks every 5 minutes or so, and coffee or caffeine of your choosing. Still working on the same standard, let's get to it. We have two LEQs. What does a demand curve actually show? We've been graphing them for a few days now, but what does it actually show? And then number two, our monster LEQ that's going to take us the majority of this video. What are the determinants, so that word is pronounced determinants, of demand, and how do they affect the demand curve? Now let me pause right there. Guys, what is the root word of determinants? Maybe determine. So how do you determine a demand curve? Something along those lines? Let's find out. All right, so what does a demand curve show? All right, so what does a demand curve actually show? A demand curve shows the quantity demanded of a good or service at each possible price. Now, the way we graph demand curves is through what's called a demand schedule. A demand schedule is simply a fancy name for a table. A demand schedule is used for economic analysis to show the relationship between two statistics or concepts. In this case, a demand schedule shows the relationship between price and quantity demanded. Now here is a quick example of a demand schedule. We have price and quantity demanded. As you all can see here, the law of demand applies. As the price increases, the quantity demanded decreases. As the price decreases, the quantity demanded increases. Once again, guys, that makes sense. As things get more expensive, less and less people can afford it. As things get cheaper, more and more people can afford it, and more people are willing and able to buy it. So that's what a demand curve shows. Now I'm ready to blow your minds here. This one slide right here, listen to what I say for 5 or 6 times, repeat it, write it down, highlight it. This is going to blow your minds. So quantity demanded, which we've been talking about in class the past few days. Quantity demanded is a specific point along the demand curve. You know, when we do like the little red dotted lines and meet the demand curve from, the x-axis to y-axis, that's what we're talking about. Quantity demanded is a specific point on the demand curve. And the only way to change quantity demanded is caused by a change in price. This is exactly what we've been doing in class. And as you guys know now, the reasons behind the law of demand, the reasons the law of the demand works is because of the real income effect, substitution effect, and diminishing marginal utility. So those three things affect quantity demanded. The only thing that can affect quantity demanded is price. Now here we go. A change in demand is different than a change in quantity demanded. That is annoying. That is frustrating. It's not my fault. I did not write economics, okay? I have to teach it to you, all right? But practice makes perfect, and we will get it. So a change in demand is different than a change in quantity demanded. Let's see some examples. Okay, so sometimes something other than price causes demand as a whole, not a specific point, to increase or decrease. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes something other than price causes demand as a whole to change. Something other than price causes demand to change. Not price causing quantity demanded to change. Something other than price causes demand as a whole to change. Now what we call this a change in demand, not a change in quantity demanded, and it is represented by a shift. Keyword there, shift of the entire demand curve versus a movement along the curve. Now what it represents is the following. If demand increases, people will buy more of a good and service at all prices. Guys, that last bit right there, at all prices, that's the key difference between demand and quantity demanded. If demand increases, people will buy more good of a service at all prices. If demand decreases, people will buy less at all prices, regardless of price. So it's one of those things that's not going to make really good sense until we simply see an example. Alright, so here we are. We are going to do what we've been doing in class the past few days. I'm going to show you all what a change in quantity demanded looks like. Now, by now, this graph should look somewhat familiar. So let's say we have some object, whatever, doesn't matter what it is, some good, some service. Here's the price, here's the quantity demanded. Oh no, the price went up. Those greedy capitalists, those greedy entrepreneurs, what does that do? Causes the quantity demanded to fall. The price went up, quantity demanded fell. This right here, that right in there, that's called a movement on the demand curve. The point moved on the demand curve. We have the original demand curve. Let's do another example. Price, quantity demanded, and we have our demand curve. So we have our original price and quantity demanded for some product, and let's do something that never happens. The price decreased. What? Price decreased, quantity demanded increased. It's supposed to touch right there, sorry. Okay, so the price decreased, which caused the quantity demanded to increase. That's simply the law of demand. And this point, from this point right here, way down to here, this is called a movement on the demand curve. This represents a change in quantity demanded. A change in quantity demanded. What I'm going to do now is show you all what a change in demand looks like. Okay, so the graph is set up the exact same way. We have price and quantity demanded, and we have our demand curve. All right, cool. Now, what happens next is not a movement. It's a shift. So again, what I just showed you was called a movement on the demand curve. What I'm about to show you is called a shift of the demand curve as a whole. Okay? So sometimes some things happen, which I'm about to explain to you, that causes demand as a whole to shift. And the way we do these shifts are we shift the demand curve left to right. So this right here is how you show a shift. So instead of a movement on the demand curve, like moving from here to here, you know, price increases or price decreases, what we do instead is we shift the entire demand curve out. This represents an increase of demand as a whole. If this is the original demand and after the event happens, I'm going to share these events with you in a moment, demand increased as a whole. So the entire demand curve shifted to the right. When it shifts to the right, that's an increase in demand. When it shifts to the left, that's a decrease of demand. Now, let me draw a prettier graph and show you what this looks like with actual examples. All right. So what we have here is price and quantity demanded. Again, not worried about the numbers, not worried about the item. Just think of any item or any service you want. Here's our demand curve, and we'll label it D1. Demand curve 1. All right, so blah, 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 blah. Price is right here. Quantity demanded is right here. Cool. All right. So what happens next? The demand curve as a whole shifts to the right. Something happened. I'm going to explain what they are. Something happened, and the demand curve shifts to the right. Let's see if I can do this as good as I can. All righty. Okay, we're going to call this D2. Okay, so here's our shift of demand. Some event happened, I'll share these events with you shortly, caused demand as a whole to shift. Now here is the key difference. According to the law of demand, when price increases, quantity demanded should decrease. And the opposite, the vice versa is true as well. So let's see what happens here after the event. So the price increases. We would expect the quantity demanded to decrease, right? So let's go out, let's take this line out to demand 2. Okay, something's not right there. So the price increased a little bit, but the demand still increased. That doesn't make much sense, does it? Let's look at one more and then I'll deliver my punchlines. Price, quantity demanded. All right, we have our original demand curve, which we will label D1. And let's do something, some event, which I'll share shortly, causes demand to shift to the left, causes demand to decrease as a whole. Demand as a whole decreased. All right, so again, we're going to our original demand curve. Always start with the original, D1. So the price and quantity demanded of something. And let's say the price went down. Well, that's strange. According to the law of demand, the price went down, so the quantity demanded should go up. Why in the world is the quantity demanded going down as well? And here is why. When demand as a whole, demand, not quantity demanded, when demand as a whole shifts, it causes price and quantity demanded to go up or down. Okay? Regardless of price, the quantity demanded as a whole is higher, or regardless of price, quantity demanded as a whole is lower. Okay, so that brings us to our next obvious question. What are these events I spoke of that can cause demand as a whole to change? Once again, I must emphasize, what are these events that can cause demand as a whole to change? We know now that the only thing that causes a change in quantity demanded, a change in QD, is price. But there are some events that can happen that cause demand as a whole to change. When I say demand as a whole, that means demand goes up. That means that the demand goes up or down regardless of price. Once again, demand goes up or down regardless of price. Key phrase, class. Write this down, start, highlight it. Regardless of price. These events are the determinants of demand. Again, the root word in determinants is to determine. They determine the demand regardless of price. They are as follows: changes in population, changes in income, changes in taste and preferences or fads, changes in price of substitutes, changes in price of complementary goods, and changes in future expectations. And we are about to start graphing them. But before we get to that, you all have been sitting down far too long watching this video, and I want to reward you for taking the time to do it. On your quiz coming up, there's going to be an extra credit question. The extra credit question is going to simply say, draw me a picture. The picture I am looking for to be eligible for the extra credit is going to be a self-portrait. If you are an artistic student, by all means, if you have a couple of minutes, draw a nice self-portrait as best you can. If you are not artistic or creative in the slightest like myself, a really well-drawn and well-thought-out stick figure will suffice. All right, so that is that. If you guys feel like you need to take a break, now would be a good time to take a break because we are about to get into graphing the determinants of demand. Now this graph I have right here shows the projected population growth from 1990 to 2015, so it's a little outdated at this point. As you guys can see, India, certain countries in Central Africa, Mexico, their population is expected to explode, whereas North America, Europe, even the Middle East and China, their populations are expected to get lower and lower. So as population in these areas increase, the demand for all goods and services will increase as a whole. Now we're going to be doing graphing examples, so I want to get through the gist of it first. Changes in income. This is not to be confused with the real income effect. So if you need to pause right now, look at the real income effect, and we're going to compare it with changes in income. So changes in income is the following. The demand for most goods and services depends on your income. That makes sense. Your demand in goods and services would decrease overall if your income decreased. I don't think I need to explain it anymore. If you make more money, you demand more goods and services at all prices, regardless of price. If your income decreases, your overall demand for goods and services decreases regardless of price. That one's fairly simple. Let's move on to the next determinant of demand. Changes in taste and preferences, aka fashions. I like this one. Taste and preferences refer to what people like or what they prefer. What's fashionable, what's in. When an item becomes a fad, more are sold at every possible price. When something is considered fashionable, consumers, you and I, demand more of it. We are willing and able to pay for it regardless of price. Think Beats headphones. We have substitutes, not to be confused with the substitution effect. Substitutes are goods and services of similar design, purpose, and price that fulfill the same want or need. People will buy more of the substitute, of the cheaper substitute at all prices, so long as it remains cheaper than the substitute. This is not to be confused with the substitution effect because when there is a decrease in the price of a substitute, so long as that decrease is cheaper than the original product, people are going to buy it at all prices. Now, I'm going to explain this more when we get to the graphing portion of it, but you have to be careful with graphing because you always want to graph the item under study. That is, you want to graph the substitute, not the original product. But that's easier to show in the example. And finally, we have complementary goods. So complementary goods are goods that are used in combination with another product. Think Xbox and Xbox games. Think ties and tie clips, peanut butter and jelly, socks and shoes. Many items that go together. They can't entirely function on their own. So when two goods are complementary products, a decrease in the price of one will increase the demand for it as well as its complementary good. If the price of Xboxes decrease, that's going to cause not only the demand for Xboxes to increase, it's also going to cause the demand for Xbox games to increase as well. And always grab the complement, not the original product. And our final determinant of demand is a change in future expectation. So let's break this down. When consumers, you and I buying stuff, when we expect the future price of a good or service to go up or down, the current demand for that good or service will go up or down. In this particular instance, think about news stories you hear about some new tragedy happened, or taxes are expected to go up, or this president's going to get elected and do this to this particular item and have these trade deals with China and Mexico. And in the future, that's going to cause prices to go up or down. Things happening today are going to cause prices to go up or down in the future. Well, because of that change in expectations, that's going to affect the current demand for products. So when we get here to graphing here in just a moment, I'm going to use an example of a pretty old triathlon bike that's a carbon fiber. Okay, changes in population. I like doing ridiculous examples with these because it tends to make them stick. So here we go. Gold, oil, the fountain of youth, and the Holy Grail was all found in Lakeland. This causes the demand for homes in Lakeland to increase regardless of price. So guys, think about this. If gold and oil and the fountain of youth and the Holy Grail is found in Lakeland, people are going to want to move to Lakeland. The population of Lakeland is going to increase. So here we have price of homes, and we have the quantity demanded for homes. Here is Lakeland today, the original demand curve for Lakeland, D1. Well, hey, gold, oil, fountain of youth, and Holy Grail was found. That's going to increase the population of Lakeland, okay? Now, what I'm not doing here, I am not showing you the increase in the population of Lakeland. I'm showing you the increase in demand for homes overall, regardless of price. So remember, this is the demand curve for the demand for homes. So originally, let's say, I don't know, the average home in Lakeland was this price. Don't worry about numbers. The average home in Lakeland was this price, and the quantity demand was that price. Now, at the exact same price point, the quantity demanded, I'm sorry, that's supposed to be a D2 over there. I'm glad you guys caught that. I could hear you through your computers and cell phones yelling at me saying I made a mistake. Thank you. So even at the exact same price, the quantity demanded increased. Even at a slightly higher price, because more people live there, the quantity demanded has still increased from that original point on the D1 graph. Let's do changes in income. Okay. This is something I bet a lot of you like to happen. Workers in the fast food industry receive a minimum wage increase to $15 an hour. Therefore, their demand for all goods and services, I don't even need to do a specific example, their demand for food, their demand for clothing, their demand for cars, their demand for insurance, their demand for entertainment, whatever. Their demand for all goods and services increases regardless of price. So this is going to be a shift to the right. Remember, guys, we don't say shift up or down. This is a shift to the right. I know technically it's going up a little bit, but we call it a shift to the right. D2. So once again, for the sake of practice, here's my original price for, I don't know, whatever, price for all goods and services. And once you can make more money, regardless of price, you demand more of it. Changes in taste and preferences. I'm probably going to get in trouble for doing this example. Please don't tell anyone. It was recently discovered that Apple is funneling money to terrorists. This is such a bad example. I should stop now. All right. This upsets consumers and causes the demand for Apple products to decrease overall, regardless of price. Imagine you're watching the news one night and a breaking story. Apple is funneling profits to fuel terrorist organizations. Well, if this is the original demand for Apple products, let's do the iPhone 17 or whatever iPhone we're on right now. Well, it's like, oh no, Apple's funding money to terrorists. I can bet you Apple stock price is going to drop, and the demand for all Apple products is probably going to decrease a lot. Let's be ridiculous. It's probably going to come like way down here. Apple's new demand curve. It shifted here all the way to D2. So once again, regardless of price, the quantity demanded is going to go down substantially. So again, the law of demand doesn't entirely apply here because we're working on a new demand curve. Okay, let's do changes in price. I'm going to throw you all a curveball here. We have price and quantity demanded. Here's our original demand curve, D1. All right, a manager at Foot Locker decides to put Nike socks on sale by reducing the price. This causes the quantity demanded to increase. All right, cool. Decrease in price, that's great. So this causes the quantity demanded to increase. So I'm going to go out here and I'm going to draw my D2 graph. Or am I? I am trying to trip you up right now, class, because you're going to be quizzed on this regularly, and this is going to be good information to know for your business plan project. Notice what I said in the top. This is a change in price. What's the only thing that affects quantity demanded? Changes in price. This is not a determinant of demand. This is not a shift of the entire demand curve. This is not a change of population. This is not a change in income. This is not a change in the price of complementary goods or substitutes or fads or fashions. This is not taste and preferences. This is simply a change in price. The only thing that happened is that a manager at Foot Locker put Nike socks on sale by reducing their price. This is simply the law of demand. I purposely threw this in here to make sure you guys are sticking with me. This causes the quantity demanded to increase. Yes, we know this. There is no shift here. This is a movement from here to here. So again, this is a movement on the demand curve, not a shift. All right. Hope you guys got that. Now let's get back to the determinants of demand. No more curveballs. Okay. Substitutes. It can be said that ties and bow ties are substitutes. If the price of ties go up, the demand for bow ties goes up at all prices. All right, so guys, right here, you always graph the item under study. So let me pause here. What is the item under study? The item under study are the bow ties, all right? So we're curious about the demand for bow ties. Generally speaking, the second item mentioned is the item under study. So this graph right here, this is the original demand curve for bow ties, not for ties. This is the original demand curve for bow ties. So the price of ties goes up. All right. Now once again, I'm not graphing the price of ties. I'm graphing the demand for bow ties. The price of ties goes up. Therefore, the demand for bow ties goes up at all prices. Because ties doubled or tripled in price because there is a shortage of silk, whatever it is, the ties went up. The demand for bow ties at all prices is going to go up as well. And so again, let's do an example. So even at more expensive prices, we still demand more bow ties because ties are still more expensive. Remember, this only holds true so long as the substitute remains cheaper than the previously increased price of the original product. Whew, that was a mouthful. And complementary goods. We are almost done. Complementary goods. Ties and tie clips. You guys know me. I wear a tie clip. It's part of my wardrobe. I like them. Ties and tie clips go together. There are complements. Without ties, there would be no tie clips. Without peanut butter, there would be no jelly. I can't really say that. Without an Xbox One, there would be no Xbox One games. Without a PS4, there'd be no PS4 games. All right? Without shoes, there'd probably be no socks. So once again, what is the item under study here? The item under study is tie clips. Even though the price of ties is what's affecting us, this is the price of tie clips. So we have our original demand D1 for tie clips. So the price of ties goes down. That's awesome. Ties got cheaper. That is great. The demand for tie clips will go up. Since, again, the law of demand applies here. Since the law of demand says that as price goes down, the price went down for ties, the quantity demanded is going to go up. That makes sense. Since more people are buying ties, it is safe to assume that more people will be willing and able to purchase tie clips regardless of price because more people are buying ties. So here we go. Doop, 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 doop. And as you can see, our demand increased regardless of price. Okay, and here is our final determinant of demand, change in future expectation. So here we go. On the slideshow, I showed you a picture of a carbon fiber bike just so you get an idea of what it looks like. So, and this is actually true, I want to buy a new carbon fiber bike for racing. Most carbon fiber material is made from China, or it's made in China, comes from China. Now, here's just a ridiculous example so it sticks. Let's say that because a certain president was elected, or something was said, or there was some type of terrorist attack, whatever it is, something terrible happened, and it's expected that World War III is going to break out in the next couple weeks or couple months, which will inevitably cause the price of carbon fiber material to go up soon. In reality, if World War III broke up, the prices of everything would go up, but I'm focusing on carbon fiber bikes. So because most carbon fiber bikes come from China, and we may start World War III with China again. This is an example. I hope this never happens. If I want to get my carbon fiber bike at a reasonable price, I should actually buy it now, because I expect in the future, because of World War III or because of Project X or because of News Event Y, whatever it is, I should buy the carbon fiber bike now, because in the future I think it's going to get even more expensive. So on this graph, remember, you are graphing the current demand. Once again, this is the current demand. So not in the future. In the future, we expect the price to rise and the demand to go down. But in modern times, right now, today, we expect the demand for carbon fiber bikes to increase. Remember, that's a shift to the right. They do not shift up or down. That is a shift to the right. So even now, while the price is the same, so here's the price before the news, before World War III breaks out, let's say, oh no, news got out, World War III is coming, the demand goes up. Sorry, my lines don't line up there. Even at the same price, you can see that the demand went up quite a bit. Alrighty, those are the 6 determinants of demand. Alright guys, we are done graphing examples. So here's our LEQ in review. What does a demand curve show? A demand curve shows the quantity demanded of a good or service at each available price. The determinants of demand are the changes in population, changes in income, changes in taste and preferences, substitutes, and complementary goods. You must remember, the determinants of demand shift the demand curve. Only a change in price is a movement along the demand curve. And as a reward for watching this video, guys, we are done. We are done. Excitement. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Here's some extra credit. Extra credit number 2 on the quiz. I'm going to have you give me a 2 to 3 sentence response. Do you think the government should be involved in our economy? Why or why not? So on the quiz, extra credit number 2 is going to be blank. It's going to say, please respond to quiz question. And you're going to give me 2 or 3 well thought out sentences. I truly want to know your opinion. Do you think the government should be involved in our economy? Why or why not? Make sure you tell me why or why not. Furthermore, even more extra credit. Tomorrow in class, when I ring the bell and say all eyes on me. So once again, not when I ring the bell. Once I ring the bell and say all eyes on me, you all are going to stand up and say, that video was so long. Just like that. That video was so long. Ding, ding, ding. I need all eyes on me. Stand up. That video was so long. And I'm going to give you 100 points extra credit because I appreciate your time. Thank you for watching this video. Truly, thank you for watching this video. We'll be practicing it more in class tomorrow. Have an excellent day, or evening, or morning.